One of the things that comes up in backend audits is that the backend is only part of the picture. And sometimes what's missing isn't a system or a process. It's clarity on who you are and how it shows up in everything you put out into the world. Kimberly Gayle is a personal brand strategist, business consultant, podcast host, and forever entrepreneur on a mission to help women unleash their real, bold selves, guiding them to step boldly into the spotlight, build unstoppable personal brands, and differentiate themselves by who they are, not just what they do. She works specifically with women who are really good at what they do, but feel stuck, invisible, and like they're winging it despite everything they've already accomplished. After 12 years in corporate PR and branding, Kimberly left to build her own life on her own terms through a craft beer tap house, a soaping company, a photography business, and eventually the personal branding consultancy she runs today. She also hosts the Brave and Bold Personal Branding Podcast. Today, we're going to dig into all of that. Welcome back to She's Built Like a CEO. I'm Brooke. If you're building a business to fund the life you actually want, this is the show for you. This is where we're going to talk about what matters, what doesn't, and how to build accordingly so you can have the life you want and the business you dream of. Let's get into it. Hi, Kimberly. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, Brooke. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I appreciate the time, and I am going to just dig into some questions. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So if that's cool with you, we'll just get started.
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. So you spent 12 years in corporate PR and branding before walking away. What was the moment that you knew you were done with that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think it was a culmination of a lot of things. But if I think about it, there was this moment where I was at home in my apartment in Minneapolis, and I had gotten to a point where I was starting to get so physically and mentally not good. Like I was starting to have tension headaches. I was starting to have what I now know is called like disassociating. I was standing at the sink and I was looking at washing my dishes, and I stood there and I couldn't move. And I know it sounds like a lot, and I'm far removed from it, but I remember that feeling. And the reason why I was experiencing that is because I was so severely burnt out and misaligned in my life that I had to make a change. And that was, I think I was 33 years old. And in that moment, I told myself I would have a different life at 35. I had no idea what that was going to be, but I was like, this cannot be it. So I always remember that moment because there was a lot of things leading up to that. But when that happened to me outside of work, I thought something has to change. Yeah.
Similarly, I was in corporate America and just had this moment. I've had several moments before I gave in, but it had to change, or I wasn't sure what was going to happen, to like my mental state or, everything. It had to change.
100%. That's how I felt. Yep.
That's amazing. Well, I'm super glad that you did, and here we are today. But you didn't just go right into where you are today. You didn't just go right into personal branding. You owned a tap house and a soaping company and a social media
Yes.
consultancy, a
Yes.
photography business. What did that all look like for you? What did building all of that do for
Wow.
you?
Yeah, it's when I think back on my journey, there's been a
Mm.
lot, right? But I started a photography business while I was in my corporate career.
Oh,
And
awesome.
I did that because I loved photography and I always wanted to do that. I actually wanted to go to college for that, but went the journalism PR route instead. But I always wanted to do it. And when I was in the thick of, I really enjoyed the corporate work that I did in internal executive communications, PR, and all of that. But
Mm.
I was like stunted creatively in a lot of ways. And so I started this photography business because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's something I've always wanted to be. And as the years progressed in my corporate career, I had less and less time and energy for that
Mhm.
business, but it still was a thing that kept me going. So it was actually the business that helped me make my big leap in transition when I moved from the Midwest to the Pacific Northwest. So that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I did weddings, portraits. I did a little bit of corporate photography. It was such a learning experience. So that helped me make the leap. And then when I moved to the Pacific Northwest, I changed everything about my life. I only knew one person, moved across the country.
That's
It was
awesome.
super scary because I left everything. I changed everything at once. I don't recommend that jokingly, but I also very much recommend it because sometimes you have to shake things up so much that you decide to make these big identity shifts and changes, right? So I ended up in the Pacific Northwest and I started to network in the photography groups and the social media group and all of the groups, right? I did everything I knew to do, but something was off. I wasn't feeling it like I thought I was going to feel it. And I was booking gigs, I was networking, I was doing all the things that I thought I should be doing, and it was working. But I was like, this doesn't feel right in my life. And so instead of just continuing to force ahead like I've done in my entire career, I sat with myself and I really was like, what should I be doing? What is on my heart? And I decided that I was going to start a blog and I was going to adventure and I was going to explore craft beer because that's really huge out here. Of course, now it's huge everywhere.
Mhm.
And I was going to pursue full time entrepreneurialism in a new way. And so at the time, I really didn't know I was starting a personal brand, but that's what I was doing. So I started to explore my new area of the world that I was calling home. And I started to adventure and I started to hike and kayak and climb mountains and do all of these different adventure things that I had never done before. And then I would explore craft beer afterward and then I would write about it. And
Oh.
that became my new journey. And of course, during that time, I was like, what the hell are you doing, girl? Like you left your corporate career where, you supported the C-suite and you were making, six figures and you had it all made, right?
Mm,
And then I was off like saying like, "Bye, I'm going to go hike, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to enjoy my life."
right.
But what I was really doing is I was finding myself and I was learning who I was. And actually what I was really doing was coming back home to myself.
Mm, I like that.
And in in doing so, in hiking and finding myself and telling my story, and I was on this quest to become a full-time entrepreneur, although here I was like, it's not photography, it's got to be something else. I was building this community of people around me who A, either loved adventure stuff and craft beer like I did, or B, were so intrigued by my journey that they became part of my community. And so I built my personal brand around my love of adventure and craft beer, and that completely changed my life. It allowed for employment opportunities. I started to get brand deals. I started to travel around and cover festivals. I started to cover small business in the craft beer industry. I ended up meeting my husband, my now husband, and we ended up opening Final Draft Taphouse because of it. And so, why I do personal branding consulting now is because I know the power of it. And I did this 13 years ago.
Mhm.
It took me almost 4 years to build up my personal brand, so anyone listening, it takes time, right, to get known and get recognized and
Right.
build your presence, but it is the way, and that's why I do what I do now.
I love that. So I was gonna ask you when you realized that that branding was the thread, but I mean, we explored that, it ties it all together, but, like, why do you love to do it? I mean, like, what brought you to wanna do it with other people, help other people do it?
I think over the last 13 years, being a full-time entrepreneur, business owner, you come in contact with a lot of people who have similar stories, right? Used to work in corporate or were in
Mhm.
9 to 5. They made the leap to owning their own business and then they're like, "Holy shit, this is so hard." First of all, I might not have business acumen, marketing experience, PR experience, branding experience. See, I have all that experience. But I would witness and watch so many women and men, but so many women struggle with visibility, branding, marketing, building their businesses. And to me, it's always going to be hard. Building business, being an entrepreneur is hard. It's a different kind of hard than the other, 9 to 5 hard.
Right.
But what makes it easier is when people know who you are and when they know who you are at your core, right? A lot of people think personal branding is about attention. And look at me, look at what I'm doing. It's actually not that at all. It's putting ourselves out there to show people what is possible for them. And that's what I was
Yeah.
doing at the time. I didn't even I hadn't even monetized anything into a business at that point. But I had a message on my heart that basically said, look, if you're like me and you don't want to do this corporate thing anymore, there is a way, but you have to kind of like make the leap, decide, and surrender to
Right.
being an absolute beginner again and to learn everything that well, to unlearn everything that you learned before and to learn everything new, right? And it is so hard. So I think for me, witnessing so many people struggle and sometimes even like do away with their dream of being an entrepreneur and building the life that they want,
Yeah.
I feel compelled. I feel like responsible, right? Not that I'm responsible. We're not responsible for it.
No, not at all, but it's something that you feel passionate about. You want these people to
Absolutely.
succeed. You want people to have the life they want to have. You want people to be able to leave corporate America if they want to and build the dream that they have for themselves. And
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
admire that so much. I love that. I have the same dream. I want everyone to be able to do that that wants to do that. I think it's a life-changing, obviously, thing to get to do. And you've got some I mean, you've paid for this. You've got receipts in this. You've,
Yes.
gone through this, and now you can help people to kinda cut through the time that it took you. Obviously, life's a journey, and our
Yes.
brand changes as we evolve as human beings, right?
It sure
But
does. Yeah.
yeah, but you're able to help them to kind of to guide them and cut down that time because 'cause you've learned so much from your own experience, and I love that.
Yes.
So, there's tons of noise around personal branding out there on social media everywhere you go. So how do you define it in a way that cuts through all of
Oh my goodness.
it?
This is a big question. So I'll maybe answer it in two ways. The way that I answer it from my soul, if you will,
Yeah.
it's coming home to yourself. It's coming home to your true self and who you really are. I actually think we're born with a message. Our life has a message. And we're talking about it in the context of business and monetization, from a business owner entrepreneurial standpoint. But the reality is we have a message as a human, right?
Mm.
And I think what happens is, and this is the stuff I think about all the time because personal branding and brand is so misunderstood. Or the terms are used in so many different ways depending on people's lens on what they're selling or their
Right.
experience or what have you. But I think as women, we get so fragmented in our lives. And it's by our roles that we play, by our titles, what we do, our own limiting beliefs, our own outdated internalized stories, society, what all these different things. We fragment ourselves and we oftentimes, I'm just thinking about my own experiences, we oftentimes get really good at like doing the pretzel thing and fitting into spaces that we should not be trying to fit into.
Right, absolutely.
And part of that is survival mode, right? And we do
Uh-huh.
that for a lot of different reasons. But when someone finally decides to build their personal brand, and I'll specifically talk about women in general, when we finally decide to build our personal brand and focus on getting intentional about sharing who we are and the message we have on our hearts, we've decided that we are just done being known for one thing.
Uh,
Like sometimes where it's like, oh, she's a mom, oh, she's a wife, she's the HR person in corporate, oh, she's, whatever, right? All this,
Labels, yeah.
whatever they are, right? And we all know that we are so much bigger than any role we ever play or any title we ever have. And I think we get to this point where we're like, we've accumulated so much knowledge and so much wisdom, and we've been through so much that we're finally done being known for just one thing. And we come to this place where it's actually a coming back home to oneself.
Mm,
Because if I think about who I am, I've always been the same soul.
right.
I just did the twisting and turning and fitting in and quieting my voice and wearing this sort of clothes and doing all this sort of stuff. And because of the environments I was in, I had to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot
And
of that.
I've always wanted to be known for who I am, right? And who I am and who most women are humans who want to help other people live better and freer and more themselves. And so that's what I think personal branding is. That's what I think a personal brand is. We finally get to that point. Now, I think a lot of people would probably say, well, there's a lot of personal brands out there that are just, selling their whatever they're selling.
Right.
But I think it's a coming home to oneself and sharing the parts of us that make us the most unique, that make us the most who we are at our core, our true selves, not necessarily the wounded ones, right? Or not necessarily the one that's people pleasing or whatever it is, right? Because we do see a lot of people that are oversharing, over explaining, doing all these
Right.
things. But what I mean by that is coming home to your true self and who you are. And that is showing up from our heart to help other people.
Yeah. I think it's a healing process too, in a way, if you
It
think
is.
about it. It's that, if you when you were talking about all these roles that we take on, there are all these labels that we put on ourselves, and because we accumulate those over the years.
Yep.
But when you strip all of those things away, whether you intentionally were in that room and meant to be in that room or not, whether you're a mom and you identify as such, if you take the label away, you are so much freer to define you.
Yes.
I'm not Mom Brooke. I'm Brooke.
Right.
And who is that? When you take the label off, it's like, well, I'm actually a really I'm a nurturer. Okay, cool. But that
Yep.
doesn't have to come with the label mom, you
Right.
know? And when you take all of those labels off and you strip down to who you are,
Yep.
and then that's your brand. I love that. That's really amazing.
And it is, I would say I don't know that a lot of people would define it that way, right? But it
Yeah.
is, it's really bringing our true selves to the forefront to help other people. And really what brand is brand, whether it's personal brand or business brand, brand is supposed to make people feel something, right?
Yeah.
Brand is making people feel something. Marketing is making people do something. Now I say making people, right? But
Right.
inviting people to do something.
There we go.
Join my thing, listen to my podcast, join my community, buy this from me because I can help you. But brand is the emotional connection we have with someone or
Mhm.
I it, people do have emotional connections with products and businesses, right? Think
Right, right,
Target.
right.
I did work at Target headquarters. People I think people still really love Target that way. So it's like, but brand is all about an emotional connection. And it's so much easier to build an emotional connection and a relationship with a human being than it
Yeah.
is with a entity or a business, right?
Right.
So,
So we were going to talk about that too, the difference between a personal brand and just having a brand. How do you differentiate those?
well, here's what I would say. So a business brand, and this is where the brand terms always come into play. And most people think branding or brand
Mhm.
is logos and colors and visual identity.
Right.
That's actually not what brand is. Brand is like the core of a being or of a business, right? Which I also think will always stem from the core of the highest level leader, right? Or the
Mhm.
people, because entities aren't, we don't build relationship with entity, although, business branders would argue differently, I think, right?
They would, but I think the generations coming up are very not brand loyal. I think
Right.
they're much more emotionally
Yeah.
connected to things, people and human beings, and so I think that, like, whether you put a Nike swoosh on something or not doesn't mean a lick to them, especially, and I think we're all following suit to some extent.
Right. And that's why personal branding is so, and I know we'll get into this, but that's why personal branding is so important too, right? The
Yeah.
personal brand of founders of a business or personal brand in the sense of, and this is where I can talk a little bit about it, is that personal brand business models are those that have an individual at the forefront, right? The
Mhm.
face of the brand. So oftentimes coaches, consultants, service providers, healers, right? Anyone who the relationship depends on the individual relationship, right? A
Right.
personal brand business model. But ultimately, as I mentioned, the founder of any business, any big business, small, medium, big business, they're the ones that set the tone for the brand itself. And we all know the ones that we look up to and are like amazing because they literally set the tone for the corporation. But
Mm.
then you know the ones that are like, ooh, that guy's behaving badly. And you start to be like, that's not good. right?
Uh-huh.
And brand is supposed to either attract people or repel people, right? And
Right.
so even though I make that statement about someone behaving badly, and we can all think of them, but there are a lot of people who also love that, right?
Right.
They might repel me, but they attract the other person. So that's what brand is as well, right? So brand is the story or the narrative or the emotional connection someone has with a person, right? It's relationship, it's connection.
Right. So just to give it some context for someone who's like, I still don't like, I understand, but I don't quite understand. Do you have some like examples of that in the real world where we have someone at the forefront of a brand?
Yes. So some examples I thought of, whether we love these brands or not, but like Kim Kardashian, right? She
Hmm.
has a personal brand, but she also has Skims, her business brand.
Hmm.
And because she is so visible and recognizable, a lot of people associate the two, right? But ultimately, she has her personal brand and Skims has its own brand. Same
Right.
thing with Gary Vaynerchuk or Gary V, right? And he has VaynerMedia and he has a few other companies. Same thing with Richard Branson and Virgin, right? Richard Branson has a brand, Virgin has a brand. Sarah Blakely, right? Sarah Blakely and
Oh, Spanx.
Spanx. The one personal brand that I have been very interested in recently because I just discovered him is Sean David Nelson. So he's Sean of Lovesac.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's the author and host of Let Me Save You 25 Years.
Interesting. I've
And
not heard of that.
yeah, so he's built his personal brand, but his company is Lovesac, right?
Yeah.
So there's a few. I know that there's a ton of other ones, but in my example with my brick and mortar business that I had, I had my personal brand, Kimberly Gayle, or what was known as ABV Girl, and the when I built my blog and my subsequent social media, it was known as ABV Girl and evolved into just my name, Kimberly Gayle. But I
Uh-huh.
also had my business brand, Final Draft Tap House, right? But because I was so visible with my personal brand, it led into Final Draft being successful because I had a community that just was ready for Final Draft opening its doors when we opened in 2017. So that's how that's different, right?
Uh-huh.
But the core of who I am and the core of who my husband is, because we opened Final Draft together. And when I say the core, what I mean is our value system and how we see the world and the identity and belonging that became very known as a thing in Final Draft Tap House, that didn't just come out of nowhere. That came
Mm.
from who we are as human beings.
Right.
So we had a very distinct brand as Final Draft Tap House, but that stemmed from who we are as people.
That's very cool. And I love that you had, that your personal brand bled over to Tap House. So do you believe, or you have the belief system that a personal brand is something that is like a chicken and the egg where we get that comes first, or does your business come first and then the brand develops? How does that work?
That is a great question. So here is my bold belief on this. I believe the best scenario for building is building personal brand first and monetizing it into a business. And that can be done in so many different ways. And I will say most people do not do that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say a lot of my listenership have developed businesses.
Yes.
And maybe not given a ton of attention to their brand. And maybe they have, but not in the deep, like journey of the human self kind of way.
Yes.
So they're already making money and they're already showing up in their business. Why would, at this point, can you tell them would be a great reason for them to still stand up and create that personal brand?
Well, two reasons. One, because oftentimes it really truly does depend on someone's marketing system, right?
Mm.
But what ends up happening or what I see happening is that it works for a couple years, works really well for about 2 or 3 years, and then things start to dry up, right? Revenue slips. There is a it like slips or there's a plateau and or the solopreneur small business owner starts to burn out and spin their wheels because they don't have this personal brand that continues to bring in business. And oftentimes the marketing can work, but it's over time, you're not bringing in new people. And the feeling starts to become, I'm just one of many in the sea of sameness sort of thing.
Right, because anybody can do, and I don't mean this in a like a demeaning way, but
Right.
anybody can do what not anybody can do everything we do, but there's plenty of people that can do what I do. There's plenty of people that can do
Yes.
what you do.
Yes.
But the differentiator, the way you stand out is definitely to have that personal brand, that voice that stands out amongst that. Like,
Yes.
I wanna work with Kimberly because I love her point of view on this, or I think
Right.
it's really cool that she's an outdoor person. I'm an outdoor person. I wanna hang out with
Absolutely.
this person, so that's the person I want to do business with because it's going
Absolutely.
to be more enjoyable, and
Yeah.
they're gonna understand me better, and all of those things.
Yeah. And I
Plus
think the other part is, and this is the burnout part, is that especially and everybody can have a different desire of where they want to take their business, right? Some of us want to stay smaller in the sense of like a team, right?
Mhm.
Maybe not revenue wise, but a team. And what happens is you're just on this marketing hamster wheel constantly, right? So, what our personal brands do is they make it more efficient because it's working for you. It's bringing people towards you because people know who you are in your name, right? So, the 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 business of keeping the business going is a little easier, right?
Yeah.
Because you're very much known and it becomes more of opportunities coming your way. So, here's what I will say about this though. I have not done this well in the past, and it's hard. And this will lead me to my second point about why it's so important is that we evolve as human beings.
We do.
I've had this is my fifth business. Okay. I want to help people differently as I've grown. I've had many of businesses, and if you stay smaller in team or resources and you start to evolve, you start to have to market multiple businesses, right? So
Mhm.
I see this over and over and over again. A few of my clients right now, they have multiple businesses because here's what happens with us women too. What we do is we learn all these things and then we want to help other women with it or other people with it.
Mhm.
And then we build this sort of business and then we want to go consult over here. Well, now you've got to market two different businesses. Well, if you're high revenue and you can hire that in, that's totally great. But what ends up happening is we evolve and we start other businesses. And if we're only marketing our businesses, there's no overarching through line that brings people in.
Right.
And we also evolve as human beings. So for me, and I'm bringing it back to my mistake, is that people came to know me very much for craft beer. I was actually named a craft beer influencer. I never thought that would ever happen. But back in the day, it was craft beer. People knew me because of my knowledge and passion for craft beer in the industry. Well, that's wonderful if I own a craft beer tap house. But what
Right.
happens when I evolve as a human being and I want to help people in another way? So what I didn't do, I have for the last 3.5 years, but what I didn't do is evolve my personal brand throughout that time while I was owning and operating that tap house. So it was more of a seamless sort of transition when I started to want to do other things. And so we lose momentum. We get associated with only what we do
Mm,
and not who we are as human beings, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as nurturers, as whatever, right? The
right.
actual core of who we are. And we get known for the things. So, another interesting little story from my life is that when I was owning and operating the tap house with my husband, there's a global pandemic, right? Lucky us having a brick and mortar where you need high volume and people
People
gather.
in seats. Yeah.
Guess what? Couldn't have any of those, right? So we saved the business, luckily, and we sold it October 1st last year. So that was really, really exciting. We sold it to one of our employees. It's the best situation ever.
That is great. Someone with passion for it. That's
Oh,
good.
yes, she is a powerhouse and
That's
I just
amazing.
love her. So it was the best case scenario. But going back to the pandemic times, I was needing an outlet for creativity and I started a soaping company. I also had some skin issues that I was dealing with that I wanted to solve, right? Because we start businesses because we solve We're all up for ourselves first, and then
We're
we
helping.
what we but with it, right? So I started this small batch soaping company, and I started to promote that and tell everybody about my soaps because I was so stoked about them, which I still make soap, but it's more like a hobby now. It's very, very small batch. Anyway, so I started to put out the fact that I was doing this, and all I was putting out, see, so learn from me. All I was putting out was about my soaping company and not my well, I was doing marketing for my craft beer tap house, but I people started to know me for soap. So everyone would just come to me for soap. And here I'm like, wow, I'm building this. I'm getting I have my podcast. I want to be known for this. I want to be known for this. But because I was concentrating on putting that out there, that's what I became known for. So that we become known for what we put out into the world. And so we evolve as human beings, and we're probably most likely going to have several businesses in our life. So
Right.
that's why when you see Sarah Blakely, she back in the day was talking all about her one company, right? So Gary Vee, same thing about wine back in the day, but they evolve as human beings and their personal brands have evolved with them.
And they house so much more
And they have
within
so
that
much
brand.
more. And all of us will. That's the thing. We will because we're entrepreneurs.
Right. Yes. Okay, I'm curious, just sidebar.
Yes.
Do you know your human design? Is that something you're interested in?
So I know the fact that I'm a manifesting generator.
Okay, I was gonna say you gotta be a manifesting generator. You
Yeah,
have
I
to
don't know
be.
the number part because I haven't done
No.
enough of that, but I was
Yeah.
like, it's manifesting gen or manny gen.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Manny Gens. Okay, cool. So yeah, typically,
But that's
typically
about as much as I know what that means.
that's okay. I don't know much more than that either. I just know that was a huge like shift for me understanding that kind of it's not just me. First of all, there's a lot of people that are like that and it doesn't you don't feel so alone when like everybody else is like I want to do all the million things. The world's
Yes.
not built for us. The world's not built for people like us. We have to pave ways for us
Yes.
because we're supposed to sit in a seat for 60 years of our lives and collect our accolades at the end and but we can't do that. We physically can't. It hurts.
Yes. It actually does. And I
Yeah.
didn't even really know that too much until bringing it back around to that story where we started.
Yeah.
I was in physical and mental pain. And I had on paper a life that most people would have given up their own for. And people would call me crazy and I would call myself crazy. I mean, just you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
you'd
Yeah.
assume
But just like
you'd think,
but I
"What
was
am I
like,
doing? What am I
what
doing?"
is wrong with me? Why am I
Mhm.
not, and people would be like, you should be grateful. I'm like, well, I am grateful, but I'm miserable. like
Yeah.
I'm and yeah, and the thing is back then I loved the work. I
Mm.
loved the work that I did, but the institution and the system of corporate, and then also like bringing it, to more recent times is that I love craft beer. I love the community. I love the industry. I love the human beings who come together around a pint. Yes, it's alcohol, but it's more about the craft and it's more
Right.
about trying it and coming together and celebrating each other's stories. I loved it.
Yeah.
And people were like, why are you guys selling? And there's a lot of reasons why we sold because, part of it is we're getting older and we don't want to run around like that. But the other part is I learned everything I could learn.
Mhm. You were
I
done.
I was done
Mhm.
and I have this new desire to help people in this way because I know how hard business is. I know how hard it is to be in those situations and I also know how hard it is to walk it alone. And I have had mentors and entrepreneurial friends in my community that have helped me tremendously. And that's what I want to be for other women. Right.
Um,
So it's like when we evolve, that's why our personal brands, bringing it back around to like once we've decided to really
yeah.
get intentional about our personal brand, it's because we're done just being one thing. We want to be our whole selves and our whole self changes over time when we know more. So
Right.
that's why I
I
get so excited about this stuff.
I love it. That's so it's all full circle. And it allows you to like show up better, easier. I shouldn't better, easier, whatever the word is, but it's when you're constantly posting like on social media and I know neither one of us are necessarily like marketing gurus, but we all have our we all we know what we're doing that to that
Yeah.
extent 'cause we're in the business of it. But it's so much easier when you have a personal brand
Mhm.
to actually show up, and that's what people want to see anyway. Because when
They
you're on
do.
social media and you can just constantly posting 5 ways to or 5 things to, it's like people are going to tune out, friend. They want to know what you ate for supper last night and like what you're
Yes.
doing on the weekend and what makes you tick as a human being.
Yes.
That's what I want to know anyway.
100%. People, you know, I know this is a saying that so many people use, but people buy from people.
Mm,
Right? That
right.
it's we when there's several of us who do the same thing, why would they choose me over anyone else, or why would they choose you over someone else? And I have this recent thread that I put out there because I want to start partnering with other people in, I guess, branding and marketing who do things that I don't do, right? Because I want
Right.
to build my network that way. So I have others that I can refer clients to. And I put something out on threads for who I was looking to partner with. And I had a lot of people respond to it. And I was like, ooh, it's kind of overwhelming, but it was really
Yeah.
amazing. And I'm thinking, great. So now I'm going to take time to go look at everybody's profiles. And I've been doing that slowly, getting through them. And I'm looking at everyone's profiles and I'm thinking, well, how the heck am I going to know
Yeah.
who I should actually like build relationship with? Now I'm looking at portfolios because some of it is design work. I don't do design work. I can do high level, but and so I'm looking at all these things and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like, how am I going to know?
Right.
How do I know if they have the same value system that I do? How do I know if they're going to treat women and human beings like I treat women and human beings? Like,
Right.
I need to know those things before I partner with someone. And so that's what I just had that's just happened a week ago or so. And I'm thinking, I put a lot of things out there about myself on my personal brand. I probably should even do more, right?
Always can do
I
more.
should be my number one client, right?
Would. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I'm thinking, so I can look at their design work, for instance, I can look at their design work and I can say yay or nay, but I'm like, but I need more than that. I need to know that if I refer you, once I build a relationship with you, that you operate the same way I do. So there's brand association and it's
Right.
a cohesive match.
Yeah. I always think about us, those of us who've left corporate America and we're starting to build all of our own businesses. I always think of us as like creating our own economy. Like we're kind of
Yes.
saying "Psh," to this one and like, let's build our own because ours is better. And right. And
So
so
true. Yeah.
it's the same thing when if you're gonna get into my little ecosystem, if you're gonna get into my world, then it needs to make sense for you to be here because I don't wanna build something where and I don't mean this in a way where it's to be mean, but at this I'm not
No.
gonna let anybody in there. You've got to set up to a set of standards. You've got to fit into the mold and not in a way where it's like, I'm not excluding you because, oh my gosh, what am I trying to say here? Man, I really went on a tangent. I'm very sweaty.
What you're trying to say is you're not trying to exclude anyone
Yeah.
who isn't. And that's what I think sometimes, in brand, we're to attract and we are
Yeah.
to repel,
We're
right?
repelling those that just don't share the same value system. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's all about value system. And yes, there's the whole saying about know, like, and trust. But
Mm.
here's the thing, and let's bring it down to when it comes to value system, if I were to partner with someone in my business and refer them out to someone or build a partnership so I can offer a service to them and we work together, it's like I would not be able in my right mind to refer someone who, let's just use this as an example because we women here, right? So
Yes.
if I partnered with a guy who was like misogynistic
Mm.
and harmful to women or anyone who is not, whatever, I I could not do that. I would not even I don't care what the money's like, any of that kind of thing. I don't care. I would
Right.
never be able to do that. Because if someone that I refer mistreated a woman or someone who is what am I trying to say? I'm blanking right now too, is like someone who is of LGBTQ plus, whatever.
Right.
Absolutely not. Could not live with that. I would never live with that.
Right. Well, it's
And
an extension of you in a
it
way,
is an
and you
extension of me.
right.
And I don't want to just partner with anyone. I don't want to just work with anyone. I want to work with people who are aligned. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't grace and nuance in there. Of course, there is, right?
Mhm.
But it's values alignment. It's values
Absolutely.
alignment. And
Absolutely.
that is what is most important when it comes to brand.
Let me
And
ask you, can I ask you this question? So, when you're building a personal brand, because we are a whole person, right?
yep,
We are wanting to show up as that whole person in our personal brand. There is some curating
there is.
that needs to be done because, we're showing up in a professional space, quote unquote. It's our own space and we get to decide what that is.
Yes.
But when you're curating, because I mean, there's some lines that I've drawn around my life. We don't even see the fact almost that I'm a mother. Like, I almost don't even share that much. I
Right.
don't share my family, things like that. I've curated some lines around there. But what kind of things are we choosing to maybe exclude? And what makes the cut in our personal brand? How do we do that?
So everyone has a different threshold of what they're willing to share and how much vulnerability they share.
Mhm.
So I'll just start with that. But when we are building our personal brands to grow our businesses and to build the lives that we want to build, we people want to work with people who are their best selves, right? We do. Because if we're service providers or we're healers or whatever, we need to deliver for people and we need to be leaders, right? So if we were to come on here and just come on or go onto social media or walk into rooms and just spew our drama and trauma and everything out, and people would be like, okay. I mean, you could do that,
Yeah, it's a
but
brand. It's a
that
choice.
sure. Are you going to land the gigs and all of that sort of stuff? I mean, I guess maybe, but you're
Um,
not, right? So the thing is here's where it is. Personal branding, we want to share all parts of us, but when we are sharing from struggle, because we all go through it in business and life, and this is where you decide if you want to share it or not. However, we share it from the wisdom once we've processed it and learned from it. If it is raw and the wound is open, and we are angry or triggered or in a bad place, that's not when we share about it. It's not to say that we're hiding, but when we're in the process of healing and when we are in the wound itself and we can't see the lesson yet, that's not the time to be sharing, right? And it would be the same. It's the same as if you were in a corporate setting or in your job, right? When people, it's not to say we don't go through things. Like, I lost my mom a couple years ago and it was devastating. I was devastated. And I wasn't able to share it. Now I've shared since then because I found some lessons in it. I've learned a lot about myself from it. I've learned just one small thing because it's such a big thing for me is I've learned that I need to go after what I want to go after in life because it's short,
mm,
you know? And so we share from wisdom. Doesn't mean we don't talk about our struggles in business
right.
or whatever it may be related to, but we've got to remember our audience. We've got to remember that we're building our personal brands to show other people what is possible. So if I only talked about the pain and sorrow from losing my mom and never getting to the other side of that, how would that be helping anyone?
Right.
It would be showing that I'm real, but
Mhm.
at some point we have to talk from the wisdom
Right.
of what we've been through because we're leaders. We're
Right.
leaders.
And it's like you said, you're not hiding things. I'm sure when this
No,
happened, you shared that something was
I
going
did.
on, or there's still you still want to be honest and upfront.
Yeah.
But when we share from places like you said of wounds or a place where we're feeling hurt or whatever it is, we're going to attract the victimhood of other people as well.
Yeah.
And typically that's not a space you want in your personal brand. I mean, maybe I mean, it depends on your brand, I guess, but
It
most of the
does.
time it's not the type of person you want to bring in. So you have to consider that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really does depend on your personal brand and what you're
Right.
trying to convey and
Right.
for what reasons, but it's one of those things if we're building our personal brand because we want to grow our businesses to be able to serve people, people do need to see who we are fully but we need to share from the wisdom we've learned from things, right? And once we've built our personal brand and there is an emotional connection and people do know our value system and what we're all about, when we do, let's say we do falter and we share something that is a little off brand, once you've built that up, people are more forgiving, right? Just like
Yeah.
in business, if you have a track record of delivering, and then you have one little slip up, it might feel like a lot, but that person knows you. That
Yeah.
customer, that client knows you. And it's just like, she must be having an off day, right?
And we all do. We
We
all
all
do.
do, right? Shit happens. We
Right.
are real human beings, but it's also how we recover that, right? And so that's part of it. And when people show up online and are just I was going to say something else, but when they're just complaining or they're just in negative and just all of that,
Yeah.
it's like that saying, misery loves company. That's who you're going to attract. But if you come on with, and that's the thing about energy and personal brand as well, if you come on with enthusiasm, realness, passion, curiosity, love, service, if you
Mhm.
come from that place, that's who you're going to attract, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not a coming when you're sharing the whole you, when you got the whole brand, it's not that toxic positivity either. It is the full
Right.
picture. It's not a piece of it's sharing, putting your best play, putting your best
That's
putting
foot
your best
forward.
foot forward. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
sometimes our best is a little bit different, but if you've
Yeah.
built up a body of work and when you walk into the rooms, because personal brand is also offline, right? When you walk into the rooms and people know who you are,
Mhm.
if there's one day you walk in and you're not as, like peppy or you're not as whatever, then there's forgiveness for that because we're human beings
Right.
because there's consistency throughout. But if you walk into a room and you haven't been consistent and you walk in, I did a podcast episode that has an example like this. And maybe I'll just share it here is that I was in a networking connection space and I met this one gal 1 year ago and I learned a little bit about her story, not much. And this I'll just preface this example by saying this isn't about her, it's an example, right? So I went to the same group networking event a month and a half ago and I said, "Hi, how are you?" Like basically like haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you. And and I probably should have asked a better question in the beginning than how are you, but I asked how are you? And all of a sudden it was this like
Mm.
diatribe of divorce, the business like all these things. And I'm going, oh no, and it wasn't judgment. It was just like, I
Right.
don't know what to do with this.
Right.
And she missed the opportunity to say something to the effect of, well, yeah, we haven't seen each other in a little while. And I've really been through a lot this last year. And I'd have been like, oh, yeah, is everything okay? And then we start talking, right? But instead, it was this just like, and I thought, oh no. So these are all opportunities for us to build connection with people, which is what we're
Mhm.
trying to do.
Right.
And we have to be really cognizant of how we're showing up in each of the spaces we're in, right? It's
Right.
not that I didn't want to hear about the fact that she's been through a lot because I've been through a lot and we could have found common ground.
Yes.
But it was just like that sort of like we hadn't been talking for a year. So I didn't know what to do with it. It was so overwhelming for me.
Right.
Right. And so that's the thing. And that's I'll bring it back around to what really personal branding is all about. We're building relationship with people. We're building relationship at scale when we're online with people, right? And
Right.
we want to everything that we say and do and how we say it and how we do it, we want to be intentional and knowing that we're building relationship with people, connection and trust.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So we have covered a plethora of topics today. And
I knew we would. I
there's
knew
a
we would.
million more we could. So maybe we'll have to do another episode sometime. But I would like to close up today and ask you a question about if there's a founder out there she's showing up, she's got her business, but she still feels like, maybe she could be building her personal brand. What would you like to tell her?
Well, here's what I will say. And I'll talk directly to you. It's if you have this sort of feeling within you, trust that. Trust that knowing that that is a signal that you're craving something bigger and bolder. And I would say explore that. Explore that in your heart and your soul. Explore it. Maybe write it out or think through it or talk through it with a friend or someone you feel safe with, because there's something that you're yearning for. And it probably is a bigger presence, or you have a broader message, or you're on the cusp of evolving as a business owner, as a leader, as a woman. And there's something there that is telling you that you want something more. And what I would say in more of a bolder tone is that this is the time that you are most likely wanting to release and unleash your real bold self and emerge from that uncertainty, emerge from behind the scenes. And it's probably you're in this time when you want something bigger for yourself. You want something bolder. So I would just notice it, sit with it, explore it more, and know that you are most likely meant for whatever it is you're right on the cusp of. So
Mm,
that's what I would say.
excellent. Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to put everything in the show notes, your podcast, your website, how to work with you, all the things. But where's your favorite place for someone to connect with you?
So I'm on Instagram a lot. So connect with me there. My company Instagram is Bold Emergence Branding. You can connect with me on my personal brand, which it's Kimberly Gayle. And so that's where I am the most. But
Awesome.
you can probably imagine I'm on all the other things.
Everywhere all
uh,
the time. Showing
Threads,
up in your brand.
LinkedIn,
Okay.
or boldlyemerge.com, or you can email me wherever, but Instagram is most likely the best place.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, everything's in the show notes. Highly recommend you go check her out. Content is always on point. Love it so much. And you guys are going to love her. So thanks for being here with me today, Kimberly. I
Thank you so much
appreciate
for
your
having
time.
me.
Yeah, like I said, another conversation another time because we have got so much more we could cover. I love it
I
so much.
know. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to talk through what's actually happening in your business, that's why I'm here. The link to contact me is in the show notes. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next Tuesday.